Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I'm Paul Dottino. He's Matt Citak. We've got 1 hour with you at 201-939-4513 to talk Giants football, the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, anything else you want to talk about in terms of the NFL. We'll be here for the next hour, again, taking your phone calls. And if you're not watching or listening to this show live, remember, an archive of the program is always available as part of the Giants Podcast Network and podcast platforms everywhere, as well as giants.com/podcasts. All right, we start things off today. We're going to talk to John Schmeelk down at Alabama in just a bit. He is at the Senior Bowl. We already talked to him a little bit yesterday. We're going to talk to him again today. Had some notes I took as well from watching the television feed of what was going on at the Senior Bowl. But we do want to mention that yesterday, if you didn't join us on the program when John came in and gave us a quick recap, there was a media session held by Giants General Manager Joe Schoen yesterday. It wasn't very long, and basically the bottom line is he just wanted to let everybody know that every possibility is on the table. The Giants could go anywhere with their third pick, and they could do anything with their third pick. So basically a whole lot of nothing, if you will. But that's okay, because that's what happens when you're leading into free agency and the draft. It's one of the reasons, Matt, why I told yesterday we were on with Lance Meadow. And one of the things I said to Lance was, I wish we could ban all quarterback calls for the next 2 months and not have to deal with any of that stuff. I mean, at least...
What do we talk about then?
Well, the weather, for God's sakes. Because March 10th is the day that you can legally start to talk to free agents about their future deals and what you want to maybe grab or sign somebody. March 10th is the day, okay? That's the legalized tampering period for the NFL. So I was saying to Lance, why can't we just hold off all quarterback talk until we get to then? Because as we all have agreed on this program, and even though we have certain tweaks on the back end of the philosophy, we've all agreed that the Giants need to get a bridge quarterback, one way or the other.
Yes.
Whichever guy we want to choose, we all have a different guy that we may prefer, and that's fine. And we all may have a different checklist and a different rationale for how much we want the bridge to play or how much influence the bridge should have on the draft decision. That's okay, too. We all have little differences. But we all agree that a bridge has to be signed. And no matter what any of us prefer, it's also quite clear that the contract that bridge signs and the status of where that bridge is in his career is going to tell us a lot about what they think about the quarterback position going into the draft. I will have a very strong opinion after they sign their bridge about how they might move forward, because there's going to be some hints in that deal. Now, up until then, I'll be honest, I don't want to talk about quarterbacks at all. But we're going to have to do it because that's what everybody wants to do. All right, having said that, it is quite obvious that, the Giants are doing all the due diligence, not only on all of the quarterbacks, because they've certainly checked in with all of their front office people and their scouts and their personnel on all of the top guys, but they are also blanketing all of the other top defensive prospects who might possibly go with the number 3 overall choice, because they really do have to keep their options open. So anybody who says to you they know what the Giants are doing, and it's amazing. If any member of the Giants personnel, Matt, you tell me now if I'm overreacting, but if any member of Giants Nation, of the Giants front office, is within 5 yards or 10 yards of a prospect, either on the sideline, behind the end zone, having a conversation, he immediately becomes the guy they're picking on Twitter. That's it. Oh, my God. Coach Dable's in a photo with Shadon Sanders. They're picking Sanders. That's it. It's done. They're picking Sanders. I mean, come on, people. Really?
Yeah, I mean, the buzz from this weekend was because, as you mentioned, Brian Dable, Joe Schoen, maybe Brandon Brown as well. Like, we're all photographed or videotaped talking to Shador at the Shrine Bowl. I don't know why that should come as a surprise to any single Giants fan, NFL fan. Like, Shedeur Sanders was the cream of the crop of the quarterbacks at the Shrine Bowl. There's only one other quarterback that was at the Shrine Bowl that is likely going to get drafted. That's Kyle McCord. And he's going to be, a day 3 pick, not a potentially top 3 or 5 pick. So the fact that everyone on Twitter was freaking out because there was a photo or a video of Brian Dable, dapping up Shedeur Sanders, like, of course it's going to happen. Like, that was the person that they were probably there the most to see. Obviously, you're going to get a look at all the prospects that are at the Shrine Bowl, just like they're getting a look at all the prospects at the Senior Bowl right now. Right. But Shedeur Sanders, going into the Shrine Bowl, everyone knew he is the guy that is at the Shrine Bowl that is going to be the first player selected.
By the way,
without a doubt,
that's probably why so many people and a record number of credentials were given out to the Shrine Bowl practices.
Oh, for sure.
Because they didn't know until like literally hours before the practices that Sanders had opted out of the practices. Everybody thought he was going to work out all week. So the credentials that they had to issue were off the charts. The Shrine Bowl in their 100-year history have never had this many credentials, whether it was team personnel or media that wanted to be there. He was the magnet. So if you really wanted to be a sleuth, not that it would have meant anything, if you didn't have one of your people photographed with Shedeur Sanders, that might have been a clue that maybe, just maybe, they could give a hoots about him being there. But I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean,
it's crazy.
It seemed like the Giants and the Giants contingent that was at the Shrine Bowl got the most attention with, the photos and videos of them with Shedeur. But there were plenty of, reports, articles, and stuff about the Titans meeting with Shedeur.
And Cleveland
meeting with Shedeur.
Correct.
And I hate to break it to anyone, but
if
those two teams want to take Shedeur Sanders, they have that right to do it before the Giants are on the clock.
That's right.
So, I don't fully – I guess it's just because, everyone all the way up from Mr. Mara down has said quarterback is the biggest priority this offseason, which obviously that's not a surprise to anyone. But I think that, I guess, is why. And because it was the GM – the head coach, I think the assistant GM that all got, photographed standing next to and talking to Shedeur at various points throughout the day. I believe it was Saturday that all this hoopla took place.
I have a great idea. I really do. And, now it's ruined because I'm going to expose it by telling all of you folks. Here's my idea. When Joe Shane and Brian Dable and the rest of the crew come back, and then they start to do their individual workouts following the combine, I think what we should do is dress Pearson up in football garb, okay? Get him in full pads, helmets, the whole ball of wax, right? Get him out to a field and have Dable and Shane go out there and take a picture of him with Dable and Shane and say, this is the mystery quarterback. The Giants, that's the dark horse. This is the guy they're targeting early in the second round. And they may even trade up into the bottom of the first round for this guy. See if you can guess who he is.
I mean, Pearson's worth the first round pick.
And look, and nobody knows what Pearson looks like, right? On this program. I don't think, Pearson, have we visually had you on this program?
I don't know, maybe briefly.
I've been pushing for the Pearson cam for like a year now.
So now
it would be fun.
If we do that, Twitter would go bonkers. I mean, there'd be like 5 trillion hits. Giants are drafting the mystery quarterback because there's a picture of Dable and Shane with the mystery man. He's got to be the pick. Of course, I'm just having fun with this, but I love to have fun at the expense of social media because that's what it is.
No offense, Pearson. You don't have the ideal quarterback build, I would say.
No.
Not for the NFL, at least.
And that's what would happen. Twitter would be furious that they were considering drafting a guy who was much shorter than the average NFL quarterback height.
Look at Drew Brees. Come on.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Hey, Pearson, this is true? John Schmeelk joins us from the Senior Bowl down in Alabama. John, we're having some fun here, waiting for you to dial in. And obviously another gorgeous day. And I have to start by asking you, first of all, did you get your luggage?
Yes, but the quarter zip that I'm wearing that was in my luggage might have to come off because it is literally 70 degrees down here.
That's so cruel for you to tell us.
Don't tell us this, John.
So if Dan Salomon's listening somewhere, me and him always remember our first trip down here where we were expecting this weather, and it turned out to be 45, and we had like shorts, and that did not go well for us. This is actually meeting expectations. It is lovely here. And just for the record, by the way, we did do some studies. We did some polling on the Pearson camp, but we decided the female population would just get too excited. And, we're just trying to be careful that way. And talking about quarterback build, like Dylan Gabriel, not that much bigger than Pearson Butler. I got to be honest with you.
So there's hope for him.
Yes, I actually just interviewed him after the game. Like, he's as polished as a put-together kid, as you might imagine. You could tell I think he's 6 years, right, in school, or maybe 5.
Oregon guy, obviously we know what that program produces.
3 different programs. He's been in a bunch of different systems, Oklahoma too. So needless to say, he is very, very polished. And look, you don't want to judge quarterbacks off the first day because they've never thrown to these receivers before, and it's messy. So I'd be very careful in doing that. But he has been by far the best quarterback I've seen so far. He's just on time. He's accurate. He doesn't have an A+ arm, but his arm is fine. And he just seems to be on top of things, which, again, we saw last year in the draft, right? Quarterbacks with extra experience click quicker. And I actually asked him that after practice, and he goes, look, you just learn how to throw and work with a lot of different people when you're with different programs. So he's by far, in my opinion, been the best quarterback here, though we measured it at 5'10.5". So I'm not sure that's going to necessarily be someone you want to target early.
I thought that Taylor Schauer actually threw the ball extremely well today during the morning session that we were able to watch.
Absolutely. And he's a toolsy guy, Paul.
Yeah.
And he's also a guy that's been in college for like 6 years. Now, he's had a ton of injuries, so he doesn't have as many snaps as Taylor Gabriel, but he certainly has a lot of experience in different systems.
All right, before we go anywhere else, the thing that's blowing up on Twitter, and I watched it live when it was on the TV coverage earlier today. You know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't. I have not looked at Twitter. I'm working.
Okay. Marshall edge rusher Mike Green.
I did not watch the edge rushers this morning, Paul. I watched this edge group yesterday.
Okay.
So I watched the quarterbacks and wide receivers from this practice today, and I will watch the practice tape of the one-on-ones tonight. Did he have a good day in the one-on-ones?
Well, let's put it this way, John. It was when I saw it, I knew it was going to blow up, and it did, because a few minutes later, Matt came downstairs and he goes, have you seen the clip that's blowing up on Twitter?
No.
And he goes,
bring it up on the phone.
Mike Green against Josh Connolly from Oregon, the offensive tackle. Green pancaked the left tackle.
Who tweeted it out? I will look at it while I'm on with you right now.
A bunch of people, but
that doesn't help
me. Steve Palazzolo.
Oh, so from okay.
He did it. PFF College has a good clip of it. The PFF College account.
Yeah.
Right. Close up of
Connolly actually playing right tackle in this particular drill. And
wow. Okay, because he only played left yesterday.
Right.
So
I said left tackle because that's what he is, but he's playing right tackle in this drill, and the offensive tackle gets pancaked, which is usually a term reserved for the other side of the ball. But Mike Green, and he had some other really nice reps today too, John. I don't know where he's going to go, but someone's going to get real excited by watching some of the stuff he's done.
And we have an interview going up with him tomorrow.
Yes,
among
we do.
A lot of
you
other
talked to him already?
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday in the morning. Really good kid, really nice kid. And I talked about him when I was on with you and Lance yesterday. He was to me the most dynamic edge rusher here, so I'm not surprised that he had a good rep. And when I talked to him, one of the things, and Pearson can attest to this, when I talked to him, he is the undersized tag on him. I think he measured in 251 pounds, if I recall, as I look at it right now. 6'031". So 6'3" and 1/8 inch, 251 pounds, only 32-inch arms. So he's not the tallest, biggest, and longest guy, but he's quick. He's got bend, and one of the things that I could tell he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder about showing up this week was, people tell me that I'm not strong and I can't set the edge. Well, I'm going to prove them wrong. So I think him getting a bull rush against Connerly, who's one of the 2 or 3 best tackles here, if not the best, I think that was him trying to send a little bit of a message.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the defensive line here because obviously this draft, one of the strongest positions that, most analysts are saying is the defensive tackle position. And so one of the highest rated defensive tackles is actually down in Mobile right now, Walter Nolan, the Ole Miss defensive tackle. I know I've seen clips and read that he had a standout practice yesterday. What did you see from him during yesterday's session?
Yeah, he has not practiced yet today. I did not watch him live yesterday, but when I rewatched the practice tape last night, he's another guy, and it's funny. I talked to him this morning during the Radio Row media availabilities. That'll be going up, I guess, on Friday, right, Pearson, I think?
Yep.
So he's another guy. He measured in, I believe, at 291 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, and he's not a tall player either. So he's a guy that's a little undersized, 6'3 1/4", 293 pounds, but 33-inch arms. So that's pretty good length for a guy that's only 6'2". And he was another guy where he goes, I'm kind of tired of this undersized label. So I said, well, Walter, let me ask you something. I went back and I rewatched your one-on-one pass rush yesterday, and I'm going to do a little psychoanalysis here. Is it a coincidence that going into a week where you were annoyed that people were calling you undersized, that your first two pass rushes and your 2 wins were straight up bull rushes where you got the guy in the chest and marched him back to the quarterback? He kind of looked at me and he smirked and he said, not really.
Yeah.
So I think he came out trying to prove a point that even though he's just 290 as a defensive tackle, which you guys know is on the smaller size, that he has more than enough power to hold his own inside. But yeah, Matt, in terms of defensive tackles, he was probably as I look at these 2 lists very quickly, make sure I'm not forgetting anyone. TJ Sanders had 1 really good rep, but he was inconsistent. Otherwise, yeah, I think there's no doubt he was the best pass rusher and player, frankly, at the defensive tackle position that I've seen over the first 2 days.
John, I would say summary over the first 2 days, the tight end group has had a few really good standouts. Mason Taylor, LSU, Elijah Arroyo from Miami. And then today I saw this one-handed diving grab by Oregon's Terry Ferguson that I'm sure drew a couple of oohs and ahs.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect out of Terrence Ferguson coming here because you see him move around and you're not sure how athletic he is, but then he's always open. And at the top of the route tree, he's very elusive. I think he's very quick side to side. And he's gotten open. He's made plays. You mentioned the one-handed catch. That was in a competition portion at the end of practice. Remember the Giants used to do this? They would bring out 2 guys to go one-on-one at the end of practice. Yep. And whoever won more reps, the offense or the defense. And it was kind of like a competition deal, right? So he came out, and he got okay separation. I guess he was going up against the a player that's here from Navy, Rayon Lane III. And he made a one-handed grab going to the ground, and he's gone open. He's shown quickness. He's shown some speed. And you mentioned Mason Taylor. He's been good. Now, that quarterback group had a rough day in day one, so I don't think they actually connected with him on many passes. Yeah. But he was getting open. And he's a guy that can block, too, Paul. He's only 20 years old. He's on the younger side. He's Jason Taylor's son and Zach Thomas's nephew.
Right.
So he has a lot of pedigree. He's a good athlete. So, yeah, he's a guy. Harold Fannin made a couple catches in the early practice today. I was talking to Dane Brugler on the sideline, and he goes, I think he's going to run well. He goes, he's athletically awkward. And I mean that as a compliment because he seems to throw defenders for a loop. He's not the smoothest guy in the world, but he does manage to get open. And then you mentioned Elijah Arroyo. To me, he's the guy that's really stolen the show from a tight end perspective. He's fast. He gets open. He's too quick and athletic. Nobody can stay with him in one-on-one drills. He's been the toughest cover at the position. And I watched him on tape before I got here, and I thought, all right, he's going to be one of these 230-pound move tight ends that you have to use as a receiver. Then he weighed in at 251 pounds with 33-inch arms. And I'm like, he's that big and he moves like that? Look out. That could be a guy that moves very quickly up draft boards. So he only had 1 year of production at Miami. He had more catches and yards in his final year at Miami, and it wasn't even like off the charts. It was like 50 catches, I think 700 yards, something like that. Then he had in his first 3 years combined. So he's a bit of a 1 year wonder, just to keep that in mind.
Yeah, so it seems one of my favorite things of the Senior Bowl every year is that seems like some smaller school guys get put on like the national spotlight and get attention that they don't normally get, and specifically from a school like North Dakota State, who have produced some NFL offensive linemen, through the Senior Bowl over the last couple of years. This year, the name from North Dakota State, Gray Zabel, interior offensive lineman. From what I saw from various clips and what I read about at least yesterday's practice session, was that he was one of the standouts of the offensive linemen. So I don't know if you got a chance to see him or what you saw on tape from him yesterday, but what have you seen from Gray Zabel?
Yeah, I thought he was fantastic. He was my standout offensive lineman as well. Not only were his reps good, but after playing tackle at North Dakota State, he lined up at left guard, center, and right guard yesterday, and he won reps at all 3 spots. He was consistent. He was strong. He moved his feet well, as you would expect from a guy that, plays right tackle. So, yeah, he was, again, just because I think of the position change and the new stuff they were asking him to do, I was really, really impressed with the job he did on the offensive line. In terms of interior guy, he was probably the best, and I think you could tell he was a standout because when they did the competition at the end of the first practice today, he was the one offensive lineman they lined up one-on-one, and they put him up against, I believe they put him up against Aeneas Peebles out of Virginia Tech, I believe, and he won that rep too. So he's been good, and by the way, it's funny. I almost hesitate now, and I know it's an FCS program, so it is a smaller school, but they produce so many players. I almost hesitate to call North Dakota State a smaller school now just because they've developed so many guys. But in the later practice today, there were 3 offensive linemen, maybe even 4, depending on who you want to count. Jackson Slater, a center from Sacramento State. Jacob Byer, a center from Arkansas State. Clay Webb, a guard from Jacksonville State, who shut down Deion Walker, who's like 350 pounds, twice in one-on-ones. And then Carson Vincent, an offensive tackle out of Alabama A&M. So those are 4 small school guys, like really small school guys, that I thought really did a really nice job over the course of that practice yesterday. But you're right, it is a great opportunity for these guys at these smaller schools to show out against competition that they did not face over the course of the year.
John, anybody else that you just want to mention quickly before I ask you to go to this afternoon's practice? Because I know the American team is still going to be coming up, right, in just a bit?
Yes, absolutely.
So
yeah.
I'd like you to give us
the guys are warming up.
Yeah, give us one other thing we may have missed from the first day and a half, and then some of the 2 or 3 guys that you really can't wait to see this afternoon.
And by the way, Jake Kubas too, right? He's a Giants North Dakota State offensive
yes, he is.
lineman.
Yep.
So they have produced a lot of those guys on the offensive line. Matt is absolutely right about that. So I watched the receivers in this early practice and the quarterback. Since I did not watch that group live yesterday, I like to kind of rotate groups. I'll go back to the guys up front tomorrow because I think that's just more fun. But let's see. Wide receivers today. The 2 wide receivers from Iowa State guys are very intriguing to me because they're very different. Jalen Noel is a slot guy. He's 5'9 3/4, 196 pounds, but he's not one of these like quicker than fast slot guys. He's a burner. He's won deep a bunch over the last 2 days, and he's been one of the receivers that are tougher to cover. And then his teammate Jaden Higgins is the opposite, Paul. This is one of your guys. 6'3 3/4, 217 pounds. Not the most explosive player, but he finds a way to get open. How he tests at the combine is going to be huge. The one guy that nobody can cover, and he's basically been the Tank Dell of this Senior Bowl. And if you remember Tank Dell 2 years ago, no one could cover him here either.
Right.
And that's Tez Johnson out of Oregon. No one can cover him. I mean, he gets yards of separation. He's running away from everybody.
Isn't he the guy who weighs as much as a wet Kleenex?
Yeah, he's 5'9", 156 pounds, which is another reason why I compare him to Tank Dell, by the way.
Exactly.
When Tank Dell was here, he was in the 160s, I believe. And now, obviously, Tank Dell is very productive, but he has injuries. How much does that have to do with the size? But no one has been able to cover Tez Johnson on crossers, short stuff, deep stuff. He has just been open over the course of these first 2 days all day long.
Has Jack Besh from TCU opened your eyes at all? From the clips I've seen, he seems to catch everything.
Yeah, he does. He hasn't wowed me. Other people have brought him up as a standout, too. It has not been anything that's, blown me away, but he's been solid. Xavier Restrepo was somebody I was looking forward to seeing from Miami. He catches everything. He's a good route runner. He's just not very fast, and I don't know how well he's going to test. Some people have made a Ladd McConkey comparison with him. That is how the kids would say kooky talk, because Ladd McConkey ran in the 4.4s. Xavier Restrepo was not. I think he might have been a high 4.3 guy, McConkey, right? I think he was that fast. Restrepo will not break 4.5. I'm hoping he breaks 4.6. So anyone who's throwing that comparison around needs to get a better look.
All right, give us 3 guys you're looking at this afternoon that you really can't wait to see.
Yes, so I will be, since I did wide receivers and quarterbacks for the American practice yesterday, I'm going to look at the O-line, D-line. So I'm going to get back down on their field and kind of get close up on the one-on-ones. And look, it's a great group. Walter Nolan, a guy Matt mentioned already, I won't go back into him. Deion Walker, someone I mentioned in passing. He measured in at 6'7", 340 pounds with 34.5-inch arms. He looks a little out of shape, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, you can see the gut. But he is powerful and he can move. So I'm looking forward to seeing him close up. TJ Sanders, another defensive tackle out of South Carolina, 6'3 3/4, 284, 33.5-inch arms. He's a guy that he had one dominant rep yesterday, but he's a little up and down out of South Carolina. I want to see how he does today. And then you have some of the edge rushers. I'll just throw a couple names out there. More South Carolina guys. Kyle Kennard. He was not only the SEC Defensive Player of the Year last year out of South Carolina, he was also the Bronco Nagurski Award winner for the best defensive player in college football. I'm looking forward to seeing him work down there. Princely Uman Mielin out of Ole Miss, 6'4", 264. He's an edge guy. I'm looking forward to him. And then Shamar Stewart, also Texas A&M. He's 6'5", 281, and he can move, boys and girls. He is an athlete. So he's good. Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee is another guy that I think can play pretty well. He's like a end defensive tackle combo at 295.
He had some good highlights yesterday, John.
He's athletic, and he's got a lot of burst to him. And look, I know you guys are like, well, he's listening to every defensive lineman. They can all be good. But Jared Ivey out of Ole Miss, 6'5", 280. Dude, this is the strength of the class,
it's
right?
Right? Yeah,
it's
you told
edge.
us going in that you expected to see depth there.
Edge and defensive line, man, like you're going to see the first and second round riddled with guys at those two positions. So I'm looking forward to watching them close up, and they're going to have a couple really good offensive linemen to go up against in that practice. Armand Membo, the offensive tackle out of Missouri that I'm a big fan of, he had food poisoning yesterday, I'm told, so he did not practice.
Okay.
So I'm hoping he's going to be out there today. And Jonas Savanea at Arizona is another offensive lineman that's a bigger school guy that's very talented. I'm looking forward to watching him one-on-one.
Matt, final thing.
Well, no, I just wanted to give John an update because of what he just said. Matt Miller tweeted like 10 minutes ago that Armand Membo will not be participating in practice today.
Hopefully we'll get him tomorrow, boys. Yeah. he might be the best he might be not only the best but the highest drafted offensive tackle here. So I would love to see him on the field. Trust me, as someone that went through what I think was a neurovirus 2 weeks ago, I feel for Armand Membo, and I do not blame him for being out here.
John, we are glad you found your luggage.
Yes,
but as far as your 70 degrees in sun, well, I hope you get sunburn, okay?
I did yesterday because I didn't have. Do you know why? Because I didn't have a hat because it was in my luggage.
Oh, there you go.
But
I take it back. I hope you don't get sunburned, but we are jealous.
It was actually funny. I got through the first practice, and I'm like, uh-oh. My face and head feel a little toasty, so I had to go and buy a Senior Bowl hat. So, warning Giants Finance Department, you're going to see a reimbursement for a Senior Bowl baseball cap on my expense form when I get back from the
Have you and Pearson coordinated, by the way, have you gotten a chance to talk to the Giants coaches here? I know you did at the Shrine. Have you talked to any of them here, and will you, and then post some of that stuff in the next couple of days?
Yes, we did Mike Kafka and Joel Thomas. Are both of them up, Pearson?
They're both, the videos are up at
the
least.
videos are up.
Okay.
Yes, they are both up. They might show up on the podcast feed next week. I think that's a possibility. Pearson and I are still trying to figure out how you want to do that. And I'm going to try to get some audio interviews with Mike Adams, Angela Baker, and James Ferentz. They're all with the American team with Joel Thomas. So I did not have a chance to talk to him after practice one. I will try to do that after the second practice here. And hopefully that'll get up on a podcast at some point next week.
John, always good to talk to you. Thank you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, John.
I'll talk to you tomorrow, boys. Appreciate it.
John Schmeelk down at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. And, you know, I got to tell you, Matt, this defensive tackle group, we've been talking about them for a few weeks coming in, and it doesn't sound like they're disappointing anybody. This is a very deep crop, which, as I said on yesterday's show, and you know how I feel about Mason Graham of Michigan. I absolutely love that guy. But I'm even more, I was always leaning toward Hunter, but could make a case for Graham. I don't know that I can make a case for Graham at 3, knowing how many good defensive tackles are going to be available.
Yeah, I'm with you completely. I mean, I basically was leaning this way, but especially since, yesterday's practice, the last 24 hours, I've been thinking that, obviously the Giants, you need to add 1, if not 2, interior defensive linemen this offseason. I would love to see them attack that position. You know, you never want to pencil a position in to one of your specific draft picks, but that 34th overall pick, the second pick in the second round, there are going to be some very talented defensive tackles still on the board there. That is where I would love to target a defensive tackle, assuming, you know, one of the defensive tackles is, you know, up there among your highest players, you know, still available. Because again, you don't want to just pencil in, you know, specific position to a specific pick. But just something that John mentioned, that the defensive tackle and the edge group seems to be, you know, a big strength of this year's draft. I know we said we were going to potentially touch on this. I don't know if we're going to have time to go too deep into it, but Daniel Jeremiah, one of the top draft analysts in the business, released his initial top 50 prospect rankings yesterday. And we have that up on Giants.com. We have a breakdown of the top 50 on Giants.com. And the only thing I wanted to mention is, of the 11 different positions between the two sides of the ball, 50 players total, he has 16 of them between defensive tackle and edge group. And that is
16.
7 defensive tackles and 9 edge rushers. And those two numbers are the highest of any position on his top 50. 16 of the 50 is the defensive line. So that just further, you know, proof and support that this is a really, really strong class if you're looking for some, you know, talent up front on the defensive side of the ball.
Now, you will notice in our conversations with John the last couple of days, we have not really spent much time on the cornerbacks. Now, that's because, number one, your top corners are not participating in these all-star games. That's number one. For various reasons, they're not there. So that's the first reason. The second reason is it is not the greatest cornerback class that we've seen. We have seen better in recent years, clearly dwarfed by the guys who are going to be up front. So with those two things in mind, again, I just think that enhances the value of a Travis Hunter as high as you can possibly get him. I would be shocked, and Matt, I think you're going to agree, I'd be shocked. Let's say if the Giants don't get a shot at him, he might be 1 or 2, and I couldn't blame a team if they took him 1 or 2. But I can't see how he gets by the top 3 picks.
I think his absolute floor would be the 4th pick, and that is only if both Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward go in the top 3, which is obviously far from a guarantee. And even then, you know, between Travis, you and I have spoken about this. I think we both agree that the 2 best players overall in this draft are Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter.
Yeah, I think Carter's right. I think it's so close for me between Carter and Graham,
Mason Graham
and Hunter.
Well,
right.
Mason Graham would be
and I'm
number 3.
I'm a big Will Johnson guy too. But the point is, they're all really close.
Yes.
They're stacked together.
They are very close. But yeah, I agree. I would say 4 would probably be the absolute lowest I could see Travis Hunter going, at least as of now. Again, things can change over the next, you know, almost 3 months. But yeah, I don't see him dropping past like the Patriots at 4, really. And even that, I don't know if he's making it to 4.
I guess really what I'm trying to say is this. I think in any draft, a Travis Hunter, a guy of that ability, of that versatility, of that quality in terms of him as a person, his work ethic, everything that we know about him, he checks every box with a plus. Not just a check, but a check plus. He is a true blue chip that also happens to play a top line, you know, top 4 core position at corner. I think he'd be easily, even if there were a couple of better quarterbacks, he'd easily be a top 5 in any draft. No?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I think between Hunter and Abdul Carter, in my opinion, those 2 guys are top 5 picks in just about any draft. I mean, even you go back to last year, obviously the quarterbacks always rise to the top. That's just the way it is. And the top 3 quarterbacks that went last year were all worthy of being top 3 picks. I believe Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, there's a good chance they could have gone 4 and 5 in last year's draft.
All right, so I'm going to piggyback off what you just said, and I will tell anybody out there who's a Giants fan, I don't care how hard and how loud you're screaming and crying for the Giants to take a quarterback at number 3. If they take a Travis Hunter or a Carter or even a Mason Graham, but certainly Hunter and Carter, I would understand your viewpoint on that, and I'll even lean on that with you. You take one of those guys, you can't go wrong. You can't cry, you can't scream, and you can't be upset if they don't take a quarterback and they take one of those absolute primo blue chip defensive players. You can't.
Yeah.
These guys are top-notch players in any draft.
I mean, as Joe Schoen said to the media at the Senior Bowl yesterday, at number 3 overall, the Giants are going to get a very good player. Whether it is one of those top 2 quarterbacks or one of these other, defensive prospects or hybrid player like Travis Hunter, the Giants are going to come out of this draft, assuming they stay at 3, with a very, very talented player that is going to help this franchise one way or another.
All right.
And just real quick, talking about the cornerbacks, going back to that Jeremiah top 50, including Travis Hunter, which obviously we don't know exactly if he's going to play corner or wide receiver.
Let me guess. No more than 4, maybe 3.
There were, including Travis Hunter, there were 6 players in the top 50.
Okay.
But I will say, so
higher than I thought.
Travis Hunter is his number 2 player with Abdul Carter number 1.
Okay.
Then Texas corner Jahdae Barron is his number 9 prospect, ahead of Will Johnson, which I was a little surprised to see. Will Johnson's not that far behind at 12.
Okay.
But then after that, there's a drop-off to 43 in the top 50.
Okay, which takes you now out of the first round.
Yes, and that's Azariah Thomas from Florida State. And then right after him, 44, Max Hairston, who is at the Senior Bowl this week.
Yeah.
But, outside of those, Travis Hunter, Barron of Texas, and then Will Johnson, there is a very steep drop-off to the next best corner, at least, again, as of almost 3 months out from the draft.
So Jeremiah's value is 3 corners in the top half of the first round, and then there is a big drop.
Yeah, then nothing until like mid-ish second round?
Yeah.
Early to mid-second round?
And we've seen drafts where we've had a handful of corners go early, before 20.
Yeah.
Not now.
I mean, just
Not
a couple
this
of
year.
years ago, we saw 2 go in the top 4.
Yeah.
Stingley and Sauce Gardner.
Hey, even though there's more gravitation to the run game now, it's truly happened. The circle has come around to the other side again, and we're seeing more emphasis on the run. You still cannot, in any way, shape, or form, ignore a blue chip, legitimate cover corner. You just can't do it. Those guys are still invaluable, and you can never have enough.
Yeah.
Never. Any team can never have enough. 201-939-4513. Before we go to the calls, a reminder, Giants Huddle podcast. Folks, it is available. Pearson, what's up there right now today?
We have our second batch of Shrine interviews with prospects.
Offense and defense, or just one side?
Today was defense.
Today's defense. All right, so check them out. Giants Huddle podcast. John has been working his butt off, like I say, like an octopus. He's got 8 arms. He's trying to interview everybody that he possibly can and giving you guys as much as he can. Hey, that's what he's there for, right? He's down there to be our eyes down there in Texas and in Alabama. Now we go to the phones at 201-939-4513. John in Pennsylvania is first on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to talk to you.
And I have to say, I get more information from you guys than I do on any of the sports networks out there.
Well, you're very kind. We do try our best.
Thank you.
2 out-of-the-box, theories, and then, I'd love to, hear you off the air. First one is, I think both Shane and Dable knew they were safe halfway through the season and beyond. I think once they reached a quote-unquote point of no return, I think it was discussed. I think it was not, literally signed off upon to choke. But I think it was, let's do what we have to do, get through the season. And I don't think they were in any danger of losing their jobs. I think this was part of a plan, not the plan, not all along. But I think once they got to a certain record, I think Mara, kind of came to terms with it and knew they both deserved a chance to do it their way. That being said, I don't think either one of the quarterbacks are in their plans. I think this might be like the movie Draft Day, where it's this guy no matter what, and I think that's more than likely Travis Hunter, who, like you guys said, fills 2 holes, 1 player, controlled salary. And I think getting the quote-unquote bridge quarterback has kind of been the way to go. And the other, out-of-the-box thought that I haven't heard much of, being that we do have a couple of extra draft picks coming in the 3rd round, that does give us a little more trade collateral. What about someone like Matt Stafford, that really hasn't been mentioned in a trade. And I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
All right, thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Let's take both of these. You want to take the second one first?
I'll take the second one. Yes.
Go ahead.
There has definitely been some buzz that the Rams might trade Matthew Stafford this offseason along with Cooper Kupp. They asked the Rams general manager Les Snead after their playoff loss, and he had a chance to completely close the door on trades for those two, and he did the opposite. He basically opened them completely wide and sent a signal to the rest of the NFL saying, hey, we're open for business.
There were rumors about Stafford at the trade deadline, too.
Yes, and even, I think last offseason there were some rumors about maybe Stafford could get traded. So I do think it is possible that Matthew Stafford could get traded. However, I don't know how realistic of an option that is for the Giants, mainly because, it's not a surprise to say that Stafford's towards the end of his career. He's, 37 now? Around that age?
36.
36?
I don't see him as a bridge yet. I think he's still a starter.
I agree with you. I think he's still a starting quarterback, and at this point of his career, he knows he doesn't have too many years left. If he's going to get traded, he wants to go somewhere where I believe he thinks that he can, compete for a Super Bowl immediately. And I just, even adding Stafford to the Giants for 2025, I wouldn't go ahead and say that would push the Giants into, Super Bowl contender level. It would certainly make them a lot better, and they would take a big step up, but it would, still be, I don't want to say a stretch, but it would still be a challenge to, make the playoffs in 2025, even with Stafford.
Before you go any further with Stafford, the dead cap hit, if they trade him, is $45 million.
Yeah, but they could stretch that.
They would only save $4 million. Now, if they decide to make him a post June 1st, it would be 26.5, but then 26.5 the following year.
Yeah, but
I know they haven't closed the door on it.
If they think their window has closed to win a championship with this current core of players,
boy, that's
which
a heck
if
of a
you're
hit.
setting up a signal saying Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp are both available for a trade, it kind of seems like they're sending those signals out, despite the fact that they just made the playoffs. Was it 2 years in a row they made the playoffs?
Yeah.
But if you're a GM, I don't think you make a comment like that unless you're serious about trading these two older veterans in order to try to get some draft picks to sort of, I don't want to say completely rebuild because they still have some talented players on that team, but clearly they're thinking more towards the youth movement in the future if they're going to even contemplate trading those two guys.
All right, so let's make sure we look at this from all the different financial angles because that's the business angle is one that most people overlook when they talk about these things. So let's look at this a minute now. He's looking at in 2025 a base of $23 million. He's got a roster bonus due March 19th. Okay, that's going to be
weekend of the new year.
That's going to be $4 million. Okay, so you're suggesting that they trade him before because they're not going to want to get hit with that $4 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the new team is going to have to pick up his base, which is 23. They're going to have to pick up his roster bonus, which is 4. So it's only going to cost you about $27 million if you're the new team in terms of this year's money, which makes perfect sense if you are the team that's taking him in. You're getting a starting quarterback who has put forth quite a good resume for only $27 million. So that part of it at least works from the team that's getting him. Again, now, if you're the Rams, you have to decide how much of that dead money you really want to take on, whether you take it on all of this year, because if you make that trade then, it's going to be a pre-June 1st trade.
Yep.
And your dead money is going to be $45 million. You've got to be willing to take that.
Yeah.
And you'll save, oh my goodness, what did I say here? If it's a trade pre-June 1st, this is all according over the cap, you're going to save a little over $4 million. That's it. And then take on dead money of almost 46 mil. You got to figure if you're the Rams, if you really want to digest that. Okay, the other question then you have to have is the team that's taking him on, are they taking on a starter who they expect to have? He signed through the 26th season. Okay, so 2 years worth of a signed quarterback. And is he of the mentality to be a guy who's going to mentor a younger guy underneath him, like Aaron Rodgers was not in Green Bay? That was quite obvious. He was not going to be that way. He couldn't wait to get out of there. And Tom Brady was not like that with the Patriots either. He didn't like guys working behind him. So you have to figure that part out of it as well before you consider if he's a viable option.
Well, I will say, obviously, never met Matthew Stafford, but from everything
They got the same name.
That is true. And we both went to SEC schools.
That's true.
Of everything I have read and seen in interviews and press conferences, he seems like a just stand-up guy. So I don't think you're going to have to deal with, the Aaron Rodgers type behavior of the veteran quarterback wanting nothing to do with the young guy behind him.
But you would admit he probably sees himself still as a long-term viable starter. I'm sure he's thinking beyond a couple of years.
Viable starter for now, yes. I don't know about long-term because, even he is admitted to contemplating retirement. Last offseason, I believe that was a report that or maybe it was 2 years ago, that he was at least, considering it, that it crossed his mind. So I don't think he's of the mindset of, I'm going to play another, 5+ years. I haven't even at least seen him say that.
Okay. Well, you'd have to talk to him.
For sure.
If you were a team that was interested, you'd have to ask the Rams, can we talk to him and feel him out first?
Oh, yeah. And he's not going to get traded and go somewhere that he has zero interest in playing for. They're not going to do that to him. They're not going to put him through that. That's just not going to happen. It would have to be an opportunity that Matthew Stafford has interest in, which, again,
and he's going to want to go to a team that's contending.
You would think, yeah.
Yeah.
Of anything, I kind of see him, again, we have no idea if there's actually going to be any sort of trade with Matthew Stafford, but I kind of see him more of a target for the team that we share MetLife Stadium with than us. I think it would be more realistic for them.
He may not want to go to a cold weather place either.
I will say he's never played his home games in an outdoor stadium in the NFL. From Detroit in the Dome to the Rams
and
in SoFi.
You get older, the arm gets weary, the hits hurt a little bit more.
He doesn't have the best numbers playing in the cold.
He might. There's a lot to consider there. Anyway, that's the point. You threw out a name of a guy who might be on the move in the NFL, and we simply talk as Team X. Might want to talk about that. We just tried to give you some of the angles that you would look at. The other item that he mentioned, and I'll take that first item, if the Giants had not practiced well during the second half of the season, had they had finger pointing in the locker room, had they had guys cutting up and basically giving up out there, not only during the week, but also on game day, no, I don't think this coach would have been in good standing with the ownership. John Mara is very active. Every time he's out here, unless he's out of town on league business, he goes out to practice and watches, and you know that. You've been out there too to see him. He watches everything. Had he not seen good qualities throughout the course of the second half of the season while the record was taking a swoon, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't want to speak for him, but I don't think that would have boded very well for the coach, because it would have been a surefire indication to ownership that things were off the rails. And that is not, absolutely not, something that John Mara would have tolerated.
Yeah.
My opinion.
I don't want to, we don't
want to speak for him, but
speak for him or even rehash too far in the past. But this past season, while obviously the record did not go as the Giants would have hoped, you didn't see reports coming out of the locker room like we kind of saw the year prior to that with the Giants' former defensive coordinator. Those stories, those reports, those were not coming out this past season. And we were in the locker room every day.
It was
the
a good
locker room was still very much together until the very end of the season. There was no, tearing apart within the locker room. There was nothing of that. Anyway, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would say. So don't get caught up in the narrative that you think that they knew they were going to be okay at the middle of the season. No, I don't think so at all. Had all of that other stuff gone on, I just don't think it would have gone well. Line 2, Coach Marvin in Delaware is next on the program. Hello.
How you doing, Paul and Matt?
Hey, good afternoon.
Hey.
Good conversations, and in the last caller, it's hard to say what Mr. Mara was thinking. Were they on the cusp? I think they could have been, because he did make the statement. He's at his limit right now, and when you're at your limit, you're thinking about making some changes, and he didn't. I'm glad he didn't. And let's give them a shot at what they need to do. The thing y'all was talking about real quick is Stafford. I don't think we're a place that Stafford would want to be. You made a good point. I think it was one of you said something about the cold weather. Two, I don't know if we're at the stage to do that to his career if he's thinking about retirement. If you're going to go to a cold weather, why not go to the Steelers? We're a team that's really have an opportunity to for him to take them to the next level. He come here. I don't believe we can go to the next level. That's just my belief. So I wouldn't even think about taking Stafford right now. Yesterday I called. I was talking about the draft. I was hearing Mr. Wilson. He was tough yesterday. He's always tough. He makes some good points, but like him and Charlie, I think they go a little too far with their statements. But he makes some good points. But the thing I was thinking about that they're drafting in the third pick. You guys are right. I think you put up on the board who is your best 4 guys. And if your best one is up there, that's the one you're going to take. If it's a quarterback that falls to him, I'm not in the favor of moving up for the 2. But if one falls, then we have to make a decision if that's the one we want, and we can turn him into something. If he's not, then my choice is Henry or Abdul Carter. Mason Graham, I don't feel.
You meant Hunter, right? You meant Hunter, Coach Marvin. You said Henry.
Yeah.
You meant Travis Hunter.
I'm sorry, Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll take Travis Hunter. And Abdul Carter is the other one that I like. Mason Graham, I do like him, but I don't like him at a third pick. It's
That's
not
fair.
a premier position. I need that position where it's going to make an impact on the game overall. The corner, the left tackle, running back, not a running back. I take that back. The quarterback. Those positions are the ones that I'm really looking for stars to come and play in, because those are difference makers in those positions. But I do like Mason. I do like Mason Graham, but I just don't like him at 3. And if Abdul is there and Henry is there, I can't jump to a defensive tackle at that moment.
You just better get his name right, Coach, because it's Travis Hunter. Just make sure you get that name right.
Am I still saying Henry?
You're saying Henry. I don't know. I don't know where that's coming from, but I want to make sure you got it right, because if they take him, you're going to be happy.
Yeah, but I'm a coach that when I was coaching, the thing I used to like, I knew who my stars were, and it was in those primary positions. But the positions that I was looking for, that guy that no one really knew much about, was my tight ends. And in the NFL, I think you can find them at running back, those stars that nobody's like. And there's been quite a few of those tight ends. I think they are one of the most athletic people on the field, as big as they are, the things they have to do, and to get down those seams. They're guys that I think they're overlooked, and you got a lot of them coming out this year. I think they're not going to be able to draft them. It's Mason Taylor.
Yep.
For Miami, I like him.
LSU.
I like
Arroyo is the Miami tight end.
Yeah. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah,
we just talked about him with John,
yeah,
Coach. A lot of tight ends in this draft.
I like Fannin. He's a good tight end. But one they haven't talked about is Jalen Conyer, I think you pronounce it, out of Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good tight end that I think people should really take a look at. And at the running back, I'm leaning towards Trevion Henderson. I'm looking at him. That he's one that I really like.
He's one of the top 4 or 5 consensus running backs in this draft. I got one for you, Coach. And a year ago, he was, I believe, the Doak Walker Award winner, right? As the top running back. Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State. 6'2", 230 pounds. And you know how I feel about getting a big thumper in that running back room. Now, he didn't have a great season this past year, but that's the kind of guy who brings the hammer to the football. And, I think that would be a great addition to the Giants running back room.
Yeah. And I think Henderson, they got him listed. I think it's something like 233, I believe.
I haven't seen the listing.
I don't know
on
if that's a true weight. You know how the college is. I don't know if that's a true weight. But they had him listed at 233. I like the kid. I liked his film, what they showed, which was really good. But before I hang up real quick, reason I like tight ends, and I've proven it in my years of coaching, I had two of them. Robert Blanchflower, who got drafted by Pittsburgh, I moved him from tackle to tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually made it to the Steelers, drafted by them. And the other one is Mark Dagnall, was my tight end in high school, and he's now and will be the head coach of the All-Stars. He's the head coach of Oklahoma City Thunder. So he was my tight end.
All right, Coach, always good to talk to you. Give us a ring again down the line.
Yep.
Be well.
Take care.
Thanks, Coach.
We left out an NFL headline today. Mike McCarthy is going to sit out a season. He has decided that he's pulling his name out of consideration for the New Orleans Saints job, and he is going to sit out the 2025 NFL season, according to NFL Network and ESPN and all your national media. And so Mike Kafka is still one of the finalists for the New Orleans Saints head coaching job, as McCarthy was one of those final five, and it's starting to whittle its way down, and Kafka's still on the board.
Two things about that. One, with the McCarthy situation specifically, he pulled his name out before even interviewing. He never actually had his interview in person with the Saints.
But somehow he was a finalist.
Which makes me think he kind of caught wind he wasn't getting the job, because why else would you pull out before you even go with the interview?
Could be.
Mike Kafka is one of the remaining finalists. I mean, McCarthy and Joe Brady, the Bills offensive coordinator, also pulled his name out.
Yes, he did.
So Kafka is one of the only finalists. However,
Kingsbury and Walker are the other two, right?
Oh, Cliff Kingsbury also pulled his name out.
He's out too?
So it's
I didn't see that one.
Anthony Weaver.
The
Dolphins defensive coordinator.
Yep.
Mike Kafka, and then the guy who all reports seem to be pointing towards. I guess Rizzi's
still in it.
Too,
He's still in it.
It seems like reading the tea leaves that the job is Kellen Moore if he wants it. The Saints apparently flew down to Philadelphia on Monday to speak with him, to interview him in person. And, we'll know, because if they don't make an announcement for the next week and a half, that means they're waiting until after the Super Bowl, and then you can pretty much make the
As I said to
assumption.
Lance yesterday, Kafka's busy at the Senior Bowl. No sense in doing anything with him now either.
Well, he's already had his, in-person interview.
He's had two.
Yeah.
So they could also be waiting for him. And we might know as soon as Monday. If they want Kafka, they can name him on Monday.
Yeah, I would say if word doesn't come out by, Monday or so, then
I'd
kind
say
of
he's
assume
probably staying here.
It's Kellen Moore's job, unless he for some reason turns it down. But based on, kind of what just happened to Bobby Slowick in Houston, last year he was getting head coach interviews, then fired a year later. I feel like if you're Kellen Moore and you get a chance to be a head coach of an NFL team, even if it's not, exactly the ideal situation, you take it, because there's only 32 of those jobs and they don't come often.
That'll do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. We are back tomorrow, again live, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, for 1 hour of New York Giants football talk, as well as NFL headlines. And, of course, John Schmeelk is going to be down at the Senior Bowl for one more round of practices and one more round of reports before he gets on a plane and hopefully does not lose his luggage on the way back to Newark. I'm glad they found it for him. I really am. Because I've never had that happen to me, but I worry about it every time I get on a plane.
Happened to me once, and it was when I was a kid with my family in the Galapagos Islands, and it was Christmas week and nothing was open.
Oh,
not the ideal scenario.
Did it ever return?
We've got it about a week into our vacation.
And it did come back?
Yes.
Well, okay.
But a full week in the Galapagos Islands, which isn't filled with shopping centers, let me tell you.
No, I'm sure it's not. Oh, my,
I was wearing like hotel T-shirts for about a week.
There you go. You got to do what you got to do. Folks, that'll do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. Again, we will talk to you tomorrow. For Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. Take care, everybody.